pro-Palestine cousins, brothers, sisters, fellow human beings, from me, Abu Felafel. And I want to let you know that I very much support peace between Israel and the Arabs who want to be known as Palestinians. And I am very much in favor of such a peace and prosperity and coexistence if and when the people who call themselves Palestinians now will simply be at peace with us here in northern Israel or in all of Israel. What makes this difficult to achieve? What makes it difficult to achieve is the Arabs and pro-Palestinians accepting that we exist. Right? We don't challenge your right to exist. We don't tell you, no, you can't have a homeland, a state of your own, right? Even though it's on historically and biblically Jewish land. We don't say that to you. Okay, now, yes, there are some crackpots in the Israeli population, and there are some very reasonable people in the Israeli population who don't agree with what I'm saying. And that's perfectly understandable, especially given the events of October 7th, 2023, when Hamas launched an attempted genocide against the population of Israel. Right? They purposely and intentionally killed as many as they could, and kidnapped as many as they could, and did other terrible things to as many as they could in Israel for the purpose of eliminating as many Israelis as they could. It's that simple, with the goal of destroying the country. Right? Now, of course, kinetically, they never really had a chance of actually achieving the full end of their aims, but it doesn't mean that they were going to stop trying if they had the chance. Right? They were only driven back to Gaza because eventually the Israeli soldiers got their act together, and the Israeli army got its act together, and they managed to drive back the terrorists after eliminating about 1,000 of them while they were still inside of Israel. And it took a couple days. It took like 2-3 days for that cleanup operation to happen before Israel even did anything in response to Gaza. Right? They didn't fire a single mortar or anything towards Gaza. And it took many days, actually, if you think about it, before Israel actually went into Gaza and started bombing Gaza from the air, and then putting rolling tanks in on the ground and sending in infantry on the ground to begin the inevitable acts of war that have been happening between Hamas and Israel since then. By the way, it's a war that Hamas launched and that they knew Israel would retaliate for. Right? And the problem is that the people in Gaza, who are suffering terribly and deserve a better life, currently support the scumbags who launched this war, Hamas, and the PIJ and their ilk, right, who are in line or in bed with each other, and they don't want peace with Israel, right? They would like nothing more than to see the same thing, all of them, really. Ultimately, right? What they want is to completely annihilate the entire state of Israel, kill every man, woman, and child in Israel, whether they're Jewish or not, by the way, right? Including the 2 million Arabs who are Israeli, right? Who are not Jewish, they are Muslim, and the Arabs who are Christian living in Israel too, who are also Israeli, right? So there are literally more than 2 million Arabs living in Israel with the full rights as every other Israeli has. In fact, arguably more rights. But the only right that they don't have is the so-called right of return. Why? Because if all the Arabs were to bring their cousins and their mothers and their brothers back from different countries where, they live now, and they have lived for 76 years or more, well, then demographically that would completely imbalance the state of Israel, and we would quickly lose our Jewish majority. And this is the one country in the world that happens to have a Jewish majority. And when people say to you, oh, Israel's such an ethno-racist state where you want Jews to be supreme. No, we don't want Jews to be supreme over anyone, but we would like to have one country, which is our home, where we can defend ourselves. That's all Zionism is, right? It's the idea of having a nation where we can defend ourselves. That's it. We can act in an autonomous way, just as any other nation and any other people wants. And just like the Palestinians want to have autonomy over themselves, and by the way, they largely do in Gaza, right? They chose Hamas as their leaders. And in Area A, in the areas of Judea and Samaria, Area A is fully under Palestinian Authority control. Israel is not operating there on a day-to-day basis. Area B is mixed between the Palestinian Authority and Israel. And Area C is under Israeli control. And that was what was agreed to in the 1993 Declaration of Principles, right? And it was rejected, even though Yasser Arafat signed it. He also wholesale rejected it by launching terrorist attacks against Israel pretty much immediately after signing that Declaration of Principles, right? The sort of wave of optimism passed very quickly when he continued launching terrorist attacks against Israel, despite saying that there was enough of blood and tears, and that, you know, what was done was done, and the days of fighting are over, etc. And he flat out rejected having an actual move towards peace with Israel. Why? Because it's not about land. It's about religion, okay? And you don't have to be, I'm not a religious person. You don't have to be religious. I'm born Jewish. I'm Jewish, whether I choose to be or not, right? You know, so it's about religion, right? If all the Jews in Israel and all the Christians in Israel were suddenly to convert to Islam, then technically no Muslim would be allowed, according to the Quran, to attack Israelis, because all Israelis would be Muslim, right? Right, which means it's about religion, not land, right? Because the pro-Palestinian people always say, you just want our land back. No, you don't want your land back. You just want there to not be an Israeli state. You want there to not be a homeland for the Jews. You're perfectly happy having 53 Muslim nations, but God forbid there should be one tiny little nation the size of New Jersey, a speck on the map that happens to be a majority of Jews in the country, right? Think about how twisted that is. It's more morally repugnant than anybody would want to see the destruction of the only Jewish state, or the only state for Jews, right? It's actually technically a secular state. The only state built by Jews, for Jews, about Jews, but it is a secular state that accepts all people of all religions, all creeds, all races, all genders, all whatever, right? All political philosophies or beliefs, right? This is the only country in the entire world with a majority of Jews who get to determine for themselves what their life will be like. And for people to want peace, which I very much do, if you want peace and if you want the Palestinians to have peace, then you should actually support the state of Israel, and you should be against the fanatic terrorists and Islamic jihadis who are against that. But that's it for now. Talk to you later. Peace.